Hi, Danielle here from Black Rock Castle Observatory, and we're back for a very special edition of our podcast. It is Space Week, the very first day of Space Week, and for this special podcast, we have a special guest. It's not Rob, he's here every week. It is astronaut, NASA astronaut, Steve Swanson, and thanks so much for being here.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for celebrating Space Week, too. This is a big thing.
I like Space Week. I like Space Year, too, whatever.
Is it obligatory, though, that like, you have to?
Exactly.
Ireland is a bit space crazy. So, and it can be sometimes a little surprising for people to find out that this is a small country, but we love space. And since people have found out that you've been here, they are just like, oh my gosh, Steve Swanson is coming to Ireland. We've been very excited. Rob is absolutely, I like to call myself a space nerd, but there's different levels of nerd. So Rob's got other questions he's going to talk to you about outside of the whole like just normal space stuff. But I would like to just ask you about, well, let's just start very generally. What's it like to be in space?
Good question. It is fun, for one thing. I mean, just living in that environment, it's a very unique environment. It's probably the best playground you're ever going to find in your life. And so that makes it fun, though things can be difficult. Just doing their simple tasks from brushing your teeth to whatever like that can be much more difficult. So it takes more time and, that kind of stuff. But overall, the environment is a great place to be.
The brushing the teeth thing, do you have to swallow it after you brush your teeth?
You can spit into like a towel or whatever if you want to, but you mostly just swallow it, and that kind of stuff, and just everything. Like you don't wash really anything, or you wipe everything off with, basically we have wet wipes for everything we use like that. So.
Hadn't thought about that. So wet wipes for the toothbrush too.
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah, it's the only thing we have for cleaning. Really.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Makes sense. So when you were, I know from your background that you born in Syracuse, but not raised in Syracuse.
No.
Lived
there 6 months.
6 months, yeah. Did you get to any winter at all when you were born?
I was born in December, so
there you go.
Yeah.
Right down the road from where I'm from, Buffalo, which even internationally makes the news. Sometimes
You're from Buffalo. You've never mentioned.
Not once on the podcast I've ever talked about this. So for anybody tuning in, Buffalo, New York, very cold, very snowy. And then you've lived all over the place. You haven't, not even just in the U.S., you've gone outside as well, right?
Yeah, just growing up, I lived in many different places from France, Italy, and Venezuela.
Yeah, and very different cultures, different climates, all of that sort of thing.
I think that helps though, because it makes you be able to adapt to any kind of environment, right? And that's in space is a unique environment, very different. So I think it helped in that whole process.
Yeah, I think, so do you remember the Mars One mission that years ago they were going to do like a one-way ticket, buy your ticket, get on it, go, never went, obviously. I was doing a lot of living abroad and traveling and very young at the time, so I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm perfect for this. I'm going to go to Mars because I was watching the bio videos and they were talking about all of these characteristics of like, you have to be able to deal with if something happens at home with your family, being okay mentally and just preparing yourself for that. I'm like, I've had to deal with that being abroad. I could do this. So obviously I'm so glad I didn't go now. Yeah. But when you're, do you ever have to, when you're in space, do you ever think about like, oh, I'm missing out? Because I miss out on St. Patrick's Day, for example, when I'm here. Even though I'm in Ireland, they do it different in the US. So it's one thing I miss at home. When you're up in space, are there things like you miss?
Yeah, you miss those, especially the big occasions, right? You miss those, somebody's birthday, that kind of stuff. Or I got a call, we had a great party last night, and all the friends were there, and like, oh.
Yeah.
You miss that kind of stuff. But overall, you can't complain because, you are in a good spot doing like some really fun stuff. And so you can't really complain about it, but you do miss it, yes.
When you come back to Earth, then do you find it hard to, if you go into a social situation with friends and family and things, do you ever find it hard to be like, oh yeah, so I was just looking at the Earth and it was amazing, and like nobody knows like how to relate to you there?
Yeah, I try not to even really bring it that way. I let people ask questions and I just respond to them, but I don't try to ever bring it up myself. I think that's just the way to handle the situation the best. That way you're not like, I don't know, just talking about it and talking about what you did. You can do it as a question and answer episode, I guess.
It's very much like that college student from does the study abroad program. It's like, oh well, I know I'm speaking from experience, but in Spain we do it this way. Oh, but in space we don't have to hold our food. It just
you don't want to be that person.
You'd be the worst stand-up comic ever, like doing your Jerry Seinfeld, like, what's the deal with astronaut food? And everybody's like, we don't know.
Yeah, right. So, yeah.
I do have to ask though, because it is something very near and dear to my heart, being from Buffalo, pizza. And do you have a preference for types of pizza? Do you like the New York flat style, Buffalo's a little thicker, Chicago's that deep dish? Do you have a preference? Or do you not
I like the medium thickness one. I would say sourdough crust for me is the best. And then definitely marinara sauce. And you got to have some meat and jalapenos and peppers and stuff like that on there.
Do you like a bit of spice?
Oh, I like it spicy, yes.
So then when you're in space, how do you compare the food?
Not very spicy at all.
Okay.
Zero. The level of spice is -1, and but so we had sriracha sauce though to help us get through.
Really?
Yeah, we got sent up in a care package, and that was definitely needed.
Yeah, because like airplane food too. Like, I know they say when you're on an airplane, you can't taste the food as well. So is there something similar that happens?
They're somewhat similar, but it isn't. I don't think it's constant. So what happens when you first get to space? You get a fluid shift, so you have a bunch of fluid in your body, water, right? And gravity right now keeps it distributed evenly throughout your body. However, when gravity goes away, it shifts up, and you get most of it from here up, and so your head actually swells, not just from ego, but from also from this. And when that does, though, that makes you really stuffy. And so if you get stuffy, then you can't smell well, and then you can't taste as well, right? Just follow that path. And so that goes away though after 4 or 5 days or so. So I think it gets better after that. But still, the food there was just not spicy at all. There was nothing they put. I consider it very bland cafeteria food. Think of it that way.
You couldn't survive up there.
No, absolutely not. I was actually curious because I know I saw a video where you were speaking about growing the lettuce and how you had never tried growing anything yourself before, but that you found that really interesting. Did you maintain that interest when you came home? Did you start growing your own veggies or anything?
Nope. I think about that. If I'm doing it, it's just putting the effort in, honestly. It's like finding time to do that. So I haven't, no, but it's something I'd like to do at some point.
Yeah, I mean, here in Ireland, it's quite tricky to come across like anything other than like just those brined jalapenos. So I started growing my own just for the uniqueness of the flavors. So I'm wondering if they'll eventually start doing that up on the ISS so that you guys can just grow your own spice right there.
That would be great. I think, yeah. I know that's the plan, especially when you're going for longer missions and going on, say, to Mars and all that. They're trying to figure out how to grow the food on board, right? And that was really the first experiment to see what would be the best way or one way to start to grow things and what were the issues with that. And they're getting better and better about it. But still, it's going to take a lot of volume and a lot of resources to grow food to do it too, right? But I think it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, hydroponics seems like a really, really interesting way to do that.
Yeah, it's always like, with the way fluids act in space, it makes it much differently, right? Because it's like to get them to stick to the parts where you want to stick to the roots and stuff like that. And and get nutrients through that and keep the movement. It's not as easy as you think.
Interesting. That's really cool. Actually, I liked your answer to Daniel's question at the start because when I was checking up on your career and everything, the one thing that occurred to me is like, God, this is the first guy I've met who looked like he was having a ton of fun up there. So that you were like the best thing about being in space was fun. Like, what do you think it is? Like, do you think that the early astronauts had to be, I guess, so serious and everything was so?
Oh no, I don't know about. I think we've maybe relaxed a little bit about how you don't have to be professional all the time, maybe because when you stay up there for 6 months, it's different than a shorter mission where you're working very hard the whole time, and you're trying to get all these different things done in a short period of time, right? So you don't have time to really do much of the plane. However, when you go for 6 months, you're getting like a Sunday completely off. And so that lets you have a lot of time and to come up with new games or whatever you want to do and play up there. And so I think that changed that, outlook, so we can do these things that they couldn't do before. I don't think the people have changed, it's just the opportunity has changed, put it that way.
Because you did bring Nerf guns up.
Yes, I did.
That was genius.
Yes. I was pretty happy about that. Yeah, but so they were, the first time we played them, though, was pretty interesting because it was just 3 guns. They had 3 bullets each. They were trying to get the small ones. They didn't have much room, right, back in light year. And so the 3 of us, it was another American and a German. We said, we're going to have a war. We had this all figured out, coming from different sections, right? Going to go in and shoot. And, the whole war lasted like, 30 seconds at most, right? 9 darts, boom, boom, boom. And it was like that. We were laughing. Then we started to look for the darts Took us an hour and a half to find the 9
my
darts
gosh.
because they floated around. One even floated all the way down the Russian segment, which is like 40 meters away, and through tunnels and all sorts of stuff. How it got down there, I have no idea, But it just was like, oh my! We never did that again. So we switched the game to the duel, where you have two people with 1 dart each, and you float together, and and you shoot and see, if you can kill the other person before they kill you, kind of thing. So, but that, it was the only way we do it, and without losing all the darts again.
Did you find all of them?
Yeah, we found all of them.
Yeah. Is there anything that you missed, like, from? Because I know did you spend most of your time in Colorado? Would you say like that's kind of where you're?
Yeah. Well, I was. Well, once you become an astronaut, you have to live in Houston.
Right.
Right. So I'm living in Houston now. All our vacations were kind of to Colorado.
Okay. Yeah. And then now you're up in Idaho.
Idaho,
so
right? Yeah.
You're. I'm guessing you've had a lot of time in mountains and
Right.
being outside and that sort of thing. So when you're out in nature so much, but then you go up to somewhere where you're not really hearing the sounds and things. Are there certain things from Earth that you just missed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So since I was busy up there and kind of having fun up there, I didn't really think about that very much. However, when I came back and we landed in Kazakhstan, the middle of nowhere. I mean, there's not anything. But as soon as I landed and got out, and it was a crisp, autumn morning. I mean, it was like 5 degrees C, and but not a cloud in the sky, and it was dry and like that. But I got out and got to the ground, and I could actually smell Earth, the dirt, right? And it was like, oh, I really miss this. It was just like this wonderful, I want to almost get down close to it, and be in it, right? And it was just like I realized I missed that tremendously, and I didn't think about it before because I guess I wasn't thinking about it too much. And but that was really definitely being outside and just being, and being able to smell Earth was something I missed.
That's so interesting. That's almost like when you haven't been to your grandma's house in a long time, and you walk in, oh, it just smells like it's familiar.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Oh, that's
it
really
is funny
interesting.
the things like I'm working remotely from a place called County Clare. I don't think you've been yet. Oh, you'll be there later this week. But it's just very different to Cork, and it's funny the things that you miss. Like I miss Beamish. Like it's just the little that you can get, you just can't get up there. And it's funny, like when you come home, the first thing you're like, I've got to go to Chennai and I've got to have my Beamish. I just miss it that much. It's just it tastes and feels like home to me.
There we go. So this is not your first time in Ireland, but you're gonna spend a lot more time here than you did the last time.
Yes.
And you tried Guinness.
Well,
you've had Guinness before.
Yeah, I had Guinness quite a bit. I've always liked Guinness, but I don't think it's as Guinness in America is not near as the Guinness here. So I definitely like the Guinness here, but and I do like Murphy's a lot back again in America, right?
Yeah.
And so, I haven't tried Murphy's here or Beamish, so I need to try them here. Yes.
Okay, so you haven't had the Murphy's yet either. I knew you didn't have the Beamish. So being in Cork, since we're in Cork, we'll get you a good Beamish while we're here.
Okay.
It's actually one of my favorites. I actually do. I've said this for a long time. I need to actually line them up though. And I like all of them, so I don't really have too much of a preference, but I don't know exactly if I could if I have
if
one.
You could pick one out,
is that
blindfold test?
Yeah, exactly. So I was just at a pub last weekend, and I saw that it was actually a group of Americans that figured out, it's one of those places I walk in all the time and I order the same thing, so I've never looked at a menu, and they had the menu out, and they're like, oh, they did flights of small stouts, and I thought, I didn't even know they did that here. So now I know where to get it. Just taste
them all. I think doing the blindfold test is actually good. Being in Texas, we did tequilas with that. It was kind of interesting that you would think the high price ones sometimes were not always the winners. Almost all the times they were not the winner of that. So I find it very interesting.
I was a bit of a jerk with a buddy a few years back. He bought a $40 bottle of wine. This was back when we couldn't justify spending €40 on a bottle of wine. And he's like, no, but the taste, it's so much better. And I'm like, I'm going to buy a €6 bottle of wine, and you're going to taste them both blindfolded, and you're going to tell me which is better. And I poured him 2 glasses of the €6 bottle of wine, and he just, on a coin toss, decided, no, that one is obviously much better. Thinking, like, no, it's definitely the $40 bottle of wine.
Love that. Did you miss alcohol? You're not drinking on the International Space Station?
Drinking is forbidden or bringing alcohol. I want the correct term. Yeah, it's forbidden on that.
Yeah.
See, I phrase it. Look at the
there
phrasing.
There you go. Yeah. So it's not like where you go, well, there's alcohol in the mouthwash if I just have enough of that. So yeah, no alcohol at all. So and you're up for 6 months.
Right.
And at any point where I'm not trying to pull it out of you, are you an alcoholic?
Yeah. No. You do miss things, anything from good food like that.
Yeah.
But one of the toughest things is we get this routine in training when you train for spacewalks, it's in this big pool, right? And it's a long day, and it's a hard day, so you're tired afterwards. And but we also then we have a post brief afterwards. That's only the first brief, I should say, afterwards, because you do a quick one with everybody, and then you head off to the bar and have beers and talk about the rest of it, that way, and the nice, easy setting and joke around and stuff like that. So we got used to it. That's kind of every time you do that. So when we go do a real spacewalk, you come back in and that's what you want to do. You want to go off and have some beers and do that kind of stuff. And so that was difficult to not have that. That was kind of ingrained in us.
Yeah, because I think there's a real social aspect to getting into a pub and just talking and drinking and everything, and I think that's the part I'd miss more than actually the actual alcohol. I'd probably get on, no problem. 6 months, no alcohol. I think it'd be fine. Yeah. I don't know if there's six months is something that could you think of a food or something that you couldn't do without? Or
just spice in general. That bums me out that you guys have to resort to just sriracha eventually. I couldn't handle. If I had to eat bland, I told my mother I had to move to Cork City to be closer to the university, because the commute every day is killing me. But the real reason was I had to get away from Irish home cooking. I needed to be cooking for myself.
Yeah. No more boiled food.
Yeah, no more boiled food. Yeah. Black pepper was considered a spice.
Yeah.
I grew up with the same thing, and I didn't realize, you don't know when you're growing up, this is the food. And then I went off to college too, and I started trying Asian food and Spanish food, and I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh.
It's fantastic.
Of course, Mom, you're not listening, right?
As I moved, like I said, to Claremont, it's much more like that. We're very rural, I've lost my spice tolerance that I built up in Cork, because I came back 2 days ago, went to an Indian restaurant called Thali, absolutely fantastic. But it was like I'd been maced. I had the same thing I'd eaten every day that I'd gone there for years, and I was just dying. It was really weird. I can't handle it.
So when are we going?
Yeah, well, we know where it's taking.
You gotta keep the spice. So if they can bring spice up to the ISS, I'll go. But otherwise, no.
What about the spacewalk? Because I kind of imagine this is the closest thing, which is not even close. I did snorkeling in Greece and thought I'd be okay with it because I love water, no problem swimming and everything. But then breathing through the snorkel made me panic, and I didn't realize I was panicking until I was out there and they tapped me on the shoulder. Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. You're hyperventilating through the snorkel. But that concept of being underwater and breathing at the same time, but when you're outside of the station and you're walking around, it has to feel really unnatural being out in space. And you're that close to space itself.
In a way, but you have to kind of ignore that feeling, right? Okay. And that's one thing. But also, again, training in the pool is very similar in that way, though, because you're in, I say under the water, so you're still in your suit, though. So it's just the idea, though, that outside of the suit, is not a nice environment in a way, not what something we can really survive, right? Yeah. And so the same idea a little bit, but not, space is a little harsher because in the water, think of it that way. But so I don't think about that aspect because it's not healthy, probably. You got to get your job done. So that's really what you're really concentrating on, your job, and the job is not easy in those suits. It's very difficult to work in, and so that's what you're really doing, and you're really trying not to screw up, because if you always read, if anybody does something wrong on a spacewalk, they lose a tool or whatever. That's what's printed in the paper.
Oh, right.
So it's that's one thing you always I don't want to be the person to have that happen.
Don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy. So you just and also just a safety thing too, right? You don't want to screw up that way. But so you are concentrating, and that's one of it is physically demanding, but I think it's also mentally demanding because you have to be on your game for 6.5 to 7 hours. Just completely focused. You can't take mental breaks really. Yeah. So that's one of the more difficult things about it.
And when you were up there, when you were doing the spacewalks, you were doing it for building.
Yeah, we built the space station, yes, and that was fun too. I got to put on both solar arrays on the starboard side, so the inside and outside one, and it was fun. It was great. It really was a really cool thing to do. So.
That's big flex. It's big enough to be I'm an NASA astronaut, but I also built the space station. So everybody comes after you how'd you like the house I built for you?
Yeah.
I think I hinted at this earlier, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the end of an era with the ISS and what you think the next steps should be if you were being a leader and they could do stuff the way that Steve wants it done. What would you do?
That would be definitely So it would wait to get rid of the current International Space Station you have to have another one before you get rid of it, put it that way, right? And so that would something we need to work on to make sure we don't get rid of one before the next thing is ready. And I think that's very important. And, you know, it takes a long time to build up and get the, you know, another space station going. So that's going to be, I think, a little bit. I know there's companies working on it, but it's still going to be a while. So I think we're going to need to extend a little more time on the current station. And I think that can be done. You know, it's all about where you want to put your resources, you know, the money. And, but I think that's the way to do it, because we don't want to stop, you know, this presence in space we've had for a long time now, since 2020. I think we want to continue that on, and also what we can learn out of it is still helpful. So I think that's the goal to me. And then, you know, I don't mind from that point on moving into a private industry for the space station, low Earth orbit, and then having NASA do more of the moon and then Mars kind of aspect. I think that's the way it should go, but in my opinion.
Sure, but yeah, it's one that a lot of people are, you know, very impassionate about. Like they have very strong opinions about it. Nobody's gonna be indifferent, but like to me, I just think like it would be so sad if we didn't maintain that presence. It's such a cool thing that like 23 years now, is it, that we've had like consistent?
This is 2000, year 2000, I screwed that up. It's year 2000.
So to constantly have people in orbit, like that's something we can't step back from.
Yeah.
Like, because we did take the foot off the brake with the Apollo program, like we stopped sending astronauts up regularly to the moon, and then it's been 50 years. Because like we do science outreach, like this is what we do, and we still have people coming up to us saying, did they really land on the moon though? Because they haven't seen it in their lifetime. You know, like I think it's really important that they feel part of it and like get to watch a mission live and feel, okay, this is real. And I know there is a lot of misinformation out there, and tackling that's probably a more effective way than sending a mission up. But I think it's important that we get to feel part of like that global thing, and that we're all tuning in at the same time, and we're all wishing well for these few people that are going, you know, to bring us all together like that. It's
we were chatting about this last night too, because I was watching the Apollo 11 movie that has all the actual footage from NASA from the launch, and they piece it all together and line up the video with the audio, and it's amazing. And that's the first thing I've seen where I felt like, oh my gosh, was this what it was like to watch this happen live? And I'm so excited when I talk to kids about the missions going back to the moon. I say to them, we're going to be able to see that. We're going to be able to watch, and I'm excited for that moment. I'm excited to have that Apollo excitement of like going back to the moon.
Oh, most definitely, yes. I'm looking forward to it. And you know, the commander of the Artemis 2 mission was on my when I was commanding the space station. He was on the space station with me. Oh, so yeah, it's great. And he's a wonderful guy, and all of them are. They're great people. So it's going to be a good mission, and I'm looking forward to that one.
And you were a specialist on the first two missions, right? And you're commander on the third. What's that transition like? What does being a commander mean to the layperson who may not understand?
Really, there's I look at it as it's really more of being in charge when things go bad. And I mean, you also do some making sure, because we have a whole training team that works on getting each person trained up and ready to do their job. However, it's maybe more the big picture, like how are we going to communicate with mission control in a positive way. There's times sometimes when it gets back and forth, and they can get little, snee remarks going back and forth and stuff like that. And so we don't want that to happen. So you kind of work with the newer folks and work with them on just being, nice about everything, right? Yeah, sometimes it's frustrating, but you don't want to show that frustration when you're talking to people. And just minor stuff like that, and all these different ways about how to act. And then when they get to space, even just when they first get to space, especially if they're the first time, which that you guys were on this flight, then they don't even know how to move yet. They don't know how to, brush their teeth yet in space. They don't know how to do that. So you're just walking them through everything, or like floating them through everything, every aspect of how to live in space. And so that was kind of fun, doing all that. And then again, you're helping them just to make sure, they're comfortable, they're doing well and all that aspect. And then you work with the ground on overall mission goals and stuff like that. But the main thing is, if anything goes wrong, you have to take immediate control and run the situation for emergency procedures. And that's really, I think, almost the main job of that aspect of it, because that's when, if it's just standard procedures, you can work with the ground, we can talk to them, come up with the best solution with using the whole team. That's what you want to do, right? And get everybody, all the smart people involved and all that. But emergency situation, that's got to be done now, and you just got to do it. And you got to have that, and then you need one person in charge to run that system. And that's really, I think, one of the big things you're doing for that.
And like you had experience with Capcom as well, didn't you?
Yes.
So like, I guess that's really helpful for you to be in that position, like knowing what they need to hear on the other.
Yes, exactly. And I really think it's very, very important, actually, right? And you need to know how they work, and so you can work well with them. And that's, I think, a really important aspect of it. Because really, there's a huge team who's doing the operation. There's only a few people in space, but there's a bunch of people on the ground who are doing it, right? And it is a whole team, and everybody has to work together to make this work well. And so you got to remember that too. And so you're just a small part of this big cog, and you got to just make sure you do your part well and get your information to them what they need to do so they can do their job.
And short of like getting up there, which part of that journey, because you've tried so many different positions, which part was your favorite?
Oh man, yeah, they're all good. So it's hard to say like a favorite because it all depends on like what phase of flight and all that kind of stuff. Luckily on being a mission specialist, I was MS2 on that, which means you're the flight engineer. So you sit between the commander and the pilot, and you run the checklist for the shuttle. So you're in launch and all phases of the flight, you're helping run the whole system, and that's kind of fun to do too, right? And that's really kind of a cool thing. And then you get to fly, on both those shuttle flights, get to fly robotic arms and do spacewalks and all that. So it's like, it was just fun. They were all good stuff. So I can't, didn't matter what position you were in, you got to do a lot of good stuff. So,
I mean, the ultimate thing is that you have to design the mission patch, though, right?
Right. So you're the commander of a mission, or the crew, I should say, designs the patch. And for shuttle missions, then the crew would get together, maybe assign one person to it, but then they'd work with everybody to kind of incorporate what people want to and get a theme behind it and all that. But on the expedition ones, then the commander would just take control of that and do that aspect of it, right? And design a patch. So yes, that's an important part of the mission.
Yeah, and I know you were working on one that didn't work out in the end, sadly. But do you want to tell people?
So this is the finalized NASA approved version.
Right.
Yeah. However, it's not the one I wanted. So being a sci-fi nerd,
Sorry to interrupt, but this is what I meant about like there's space nerds and then there's different levels of space nerds.
Right.
This is the other level.
Yeah, definitely up there. And I love science fiction, and I decided, I think that was part of my decision making in becoming an astronaut, or at least trying to become an astronaut, right? It was like, I was looking for something, but that adventure and that, idea of science fiction and what you could do with it and go to space was just ingrained in me in a way. So like, okay, I'll try it aspect of it. So I thought that was very important for me to kind of pay back to that, right? So I said, all right, I'm going to think of a way to, pay back to that to the patch, right? So I went, okay, and I'm definitely a Star Trek one. And so I said, I'll base it off of Star Trek. So I started looking through all these different Star Trek patches that are out there. And I came across one called the Klingon Night Blood patch, right? And I was like, that's a pretty cool patch. So I'm going to base it off of that. And so I did that, and I worked with a graphic artist to come up with this patch. And I thought it looked pretty cool. Biased, of course. But so, and then I got, so I went through it, and I talked to other crewmates, and they're all fine with it. And then I went through our management, and they're all fine with it, and everything was good. And then it, to the last little stage was, NASA legal had to approve it. And it's actually from the Johnson Space Center, NASA legal. They have to prove it before they can do that. And and I'd already gotten rights from CBS to use the Klingon symbol.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So this is the patch. I mean, this is you can see the Klingon symbol in here, right? I don't know if you can see that right here. Yeah, right here. So the Soyuz is in there.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I did that. So I got the right to use the Klingon symbol in there. They said, yeah, no problem. Because they were happy I was doing it. And but NASA legal says, no, you're endorsing Star Trek. You cannot endorse being a government employee. I'm like, I'm not getting anything for this. I'm not, trying to pay back. And then I showed them. There had been many pictures before of crews dressed up in, like, for their crew photos and stuff in Star Trek regalia, right? And I sent them pictures of this. I said, listen, we've already done this before, right? I go, well, that didn't come through our approval office.
Oh no.
So it was like,
It
was terrible. So I had to change it and went with this. But then I decided, no, I need to make some of these just to make sure that people have the real one. This is not the real patch.
It's absolutely beautiful, and it's just a really great way to engage people, to have something a little bit unique as well.
Right.
We were based in a castle.
Yeah.
People
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's a
exactly.
regular castle, but like the fact that it's that unique and strange is a really good hook.
Right, there's bigger castles out there. There's bigger telescopes, but
Yeah.
there aren't any castles with telescopes on top.
Right,
So.
exactly. No, I agree. So I thought it was a great idea, but of course.
I have Star Trek called and asked you to be a special guest. yet?
No.
No, we had Mae Jemison, and I think we've had another astronaut on Star Trek as well. But I just think it's such an awesome way to reach out to people, and we've heard. I'm sure you've had colleagues say Star Trek was a huge influence on me.
Right.
Same goes for shows like Jurassic Park help get people into paleontology, and I do find that with science communication, which I guess is a big part of what you do as well, that we need to be a little bit less rigid about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. We need to be less rigid. I can't blame the lawyers all the way because it's legit. I don't know much about the U.S. law, but I got schooled on this a little bit. Is that the law is written really poorly in the sense that if you even give the image of endorsing or doing anything for, you don't have to even get money back or do anything. If you just give the image that you're doing it, that's against the law. So it's a really stupid law. So it's and they couldn't even be upheld in court. They even somebody proved that this, it's so bad that you can't even, use that law. But the lawyers then were going off of that. But I also got my little revenge on them. So when I got to space, I did bring up a couple shirts.
Nice.
Right, and one of them was a shirt with just the Klingon symbol on it, which I wore the first day,
Nice.
and made sure
Wow.
pictures were there, and sent down the pictures.
How did you get? Because I just thought they would go through everything, and everything would have to be approved and all
Oh,
of
no,
that.
not for your clothing.
All right, okay.
Yep, and I did another one with the Serenity ship from Firefly. I had that one and set that one down too. So I actually started the ISS Instagram account. So I started that instead because everybody does their own, and I want to do one for the ISS itself, right? So I
Yeah.
didn't do one for me. I did it for the ISS and started that account, and that's where the first picture coming down was those shots of the Klingon shirt and the Serenity shirt.
That's really cool. Actually, I did have when I told people we were speaking to you today a question, and it was, "What's your favorite non-Federation starship?" And I think I can guess.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah, and that photo of the Instagram shot, if I remember correctly, you're in the cupola. So
Yes,
you
and
got
then the cupola, right.
It's just a great shot behind you. So you already had a real knack for Instagram before you even started
Yeah.
the Instagram account. Let's see, is there anything? There's loads of questions, and I'm sure I'll think of 100 more after this. Can you think of anything right now?
Well, I guess the obvious one is you've been through this training to survive in really, really harsh and inhospitable environments. Did that help you when you got to Dublin?
It helps when you travel anywhere, I think, right? Because you're just not going to get really phased or upset about anything, because things can always go wrong, or and you just don't really worry about it too much. As long as you have a roof over your head at nighttime, some food and a beer in your hand,
There you go.
you can handle anything, right? So just keep that attitude, and it's all good. So as our spaceship wasn't falling apart or whatever like that, we had air to breathe, you're good to go.
The simple things in life. You
Yeah.
have air to breathe. Yeah, I don't know. We were talking to Dan Tanny before, and he talked to, maybe it's just me with water, and I thought I loved water, but I think the idea of actually being under it, he was saying that he did the Nemo training
Right.
and was underwater for a long period of time, and I thought, geez, I don't know if I could do that. I think it'd be cool to go under, but knowing I'm coming right back up, not under for, what is it, 2 weeks or something?
Yeah, about 2 weeks they did Nemos, yeah.
Under the water, I don't know, that I think would scare me a little bit. But then that's the same kind of environment, really.
Yeah, it
going
is.
up
Yeah, you're not going outside. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
besides for a spacewalk, same idea what they did on Nemo's, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Did you do any interesting training for? Because I'm trying to think. Is it all your training must be different depending on what kind of missions you're going up on. So not all astronauts do the exact same training.
For space station long duration, it's pretty much the same because we don't know what you're going to be doing. So they do a skills-based training set where you can kind of handle anything. It takes over 2 years to go through that training flow, right? So you have to learn to fix all different types of equipment, but really being also, I guess, more like being able to follow procedures well and know all the tools well, so you can use all the tools and use all that kind of stuff no matter what procedure they give you.
Okay.
Right, so that idea. And that's luckily, we don't have to know everything. We have these really great people on the ground who can tell us, write the procedures on how to fix whatever breaks.
Okay.
And so we just have to be able to follow them. And so that's really you need to teach it. But there are a few things that you have to know. For the big one is if we lose communication with mission control or the ground, then to get that back, that you have to know, because nobody's going to help you on that one.
Yeah.
So I realized that was to me one of the most important things in that to get communication back. What do you need to do in all these different cases? So that was one thing you had to know. But besides that, it's not. You probably, like anything, we get more training than we probably need, but that's probably good in a way. Because you never know what you're going to come across.
You train for situations that you hope you never have to see, basically. Yeah.
But it helps you then think about, it might be similar in a way and to help solve another real one that you have and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other question I have, because the ISS kind of strikes me as a parallel between our office upstairs. You've seen it. It's a mess. Like, we're all squeezed into a really, really tight space. But one of the ways we kind of relieve that tension is through pranking each other. So sneak up on each other, scare each other, we had a former colleague, Cirque, who was absolutely terrified of spiders, so we obviously hid spiders everywhere. Danielle, we throw snakes at her. Did you guys ever get to pull pranks on the ISS? And if so, was there something unique you could do that you couldn't do on Earth?
We probably didn't do pranks as much as just, I thought it was important to have fun. That's like the Nerf dart guns and other things like that. I made sure that we always should just have fun together. You know what I mean? We did just, I think that can relieve all the tensions too. I think, if you make games up, we did all that kind of stuff and play games on our day off and all this kind of stuff, just to be together and also but in a totally fun environment and stuff like that. You definitely made jokes about like certain people's music and stuff like that, and choices and stuff like that. But it was, I had to go, never really full on pranks. It was just that was the time involved, and that was probably too much. And you have resources too, But we probably tried to do little things just to have fun with people, but nothing too big. It was definitely, I think though, humor is a good way to relieve all the tension.
Yeah.
But even like cross cultures, humor can be very different. So did all of that go down well?
No, it did. Yeah, it does. I mean, we had fun with everyone around the cultures, and there's definitely just having fun though. Playing games, it doesn't matter what culture you are. Because you can have fun with that. And we definitely did.
Especially because you're creating your own games from scratch.
Right. Exactly.
That actually probably helps out when you're building a game, is having different cultures, because even different places. Especially like kids come up with a lot of different things.
Oh yeah.
When I've lived in different countries, I've taught English and stuff and had little kids around, and they'll teach me games that they expect me to know, and I'm like, I never grew up with this before. I've never seen it, and so it's just the creativity of having the different cultures and cultural backgrounds. That must be kind of fun playing games.
It is. I think having different cultural backgrounds or any different backgrounds is great for any team, right?
Yeah. So. You'd think the food would be better then.
Yeah. Well, actually, the one during one of the long durations, we had a German astronaut, Alex Gerst, and he said it's hard making food, and his food was much better. We were all jealous of his food. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we've got a Irish road trip ahead of us. We're going to Galway, Offaly, Kildare, Dublin. I'm very excited about it. Also, we're going to an aquarium in Galway to explore what alien life might look like on Europa. A really cool mission that's coming up later this week. We're going to Birr Castle to look at the Leviathan Telescope, which is an incredible part of Ireland. It's archaeological history. Going to Maynooth to see what cool research Irish universities are working on. Any part of the trip so far that you're particularly excited about?
Oh yeah, but I think the Galway aspect for sure is. I think that's a really unique and cool area. I'm really looking forward to that too.
Awesome. And I've heard, it's not confirmed yet, but there's a chance we're meeting with somebody who's basically an Irish celebrity, but we'll keep that under our hats. But very much beloved by the Irish people.
Stay tuned for that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well. Unless you have any questions for us.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Well, we really hope that you enjoy Ireland, and we're actually really excited to be able to get to show you most of it. There's other pockets to get to and explore, so you have to come back and visit again. But thank you so much for joining us. for the podcast, for the road trip around Ireland, and for Space Week especially. If you want to get involved in Space Week, just head over to spaceweek.ie. You can see all of our events that are running there. If you want to run your own event, it's not too late. Go ahead, set up an event. You can register it on the website there and help get the numbers up for Ireland, because we are always in the running for the top country in the world for Space Week, and we do really well, so we want to keep that trend going. And it's all thanks to you guys and all of your support and all the things happening around the country. So thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks, Rob, for coming down from Clare. No, so far away. And I hope everyone has a great Space Week. So enjoy. Bye.
Bye-bye.